Yeah, I think us just one when we have turnovers from the defensive side that we go score, find a way to get points. I think another one was just us being on the same page, us understanding the flow, that we're in. If we're in a flow, let us just stay in that flow, get going. Whether it's the run game, whether it's the pass game. Today, we did kind of both pretty evenly, which is obviously great at what we want to do every week. But when it's not like that, stay in the flow. If we get drives going with the pass game, sprinkling a few runs, and we get the game going with a few runs, sprinkling the pass, and then keep running the ball. So I think that was the main point of emphasis throughout the week, and obviously us just having open communication is most important because like I said before, us having communication, myself being better with communicating, whether it's game day, throughout the week, or whatever the case may be, that I had to be better. And I think today and throughout the week as a collective, I think we were all better.
Finally, watching that game this past Sunday, me and a friend said that exact same statement in unison when DJ caught the touchdown. Effing finally. That's what another friend texted me at that exact same moment when DJ caught the touchdown. Finally, we saw a run game. Finally, we saw a cohesive looking-ish offense and better decisions being made. With some positive things this week and plenty of room to grow, the Bears beat the LA Rams and are now 2-2. So, what did we learn about the Bears this week?
So that clip that you heard, the reference there is that Caleb is talking about the meeting that the players had with Coach Shane Waldron about getting on the same page. So for me, I think what we learned there is we talked about the coaching staff last week and we were pretty critical of them, is that the players are actually, I think, ahead of the coaches in terms of their awareness. Why is this rookie quarterback and a handful of veteran offensive leaders need to tell the coach, like, hey, coach harder? I don't know. It seemed a little early for something like that, but I don't know. I think it worked to some degree, but it still didn't give me confidence in the coaching staff moving forward, having to have something like that happen so early on. So for me, I learned that, like, hey, these players, I think they might get it a little bit more than the coaches do, in terms of like figuring out how to turn this thing around.
Let me ask you a question about that actually, quickly. So, the feeling you got from that was like it was not like a normal meeting about what's going on. This was kind of like, yo, bro, we need to talk about what's happening and let's course correct hard early.
Yeah, I think, and I don't want to sound totally negative on it because
Sure.
it's good that they have that kind of locker room that they can do that and they have that kind of coaching staff that can receive that. And nobody seemed like it was a negative thing. So that's good. It's just like, why does it have to happen? Like, why can't these guys figure out how to do a better job coaching without the players being like, hey, do a better job coaching, or like coach me harder, right? Essentially is what they're saying. Like, don't be afraid to tell me what I can fix. Don't be afraid to like call us out, things like that. So, yeah. So I don't know. I think, we talked about the keys from last week. We talked about the keys from the game, for this week against the Rams, and coaching was the big one, right? We talked about McVay and Flus, strength on strength. How's that going to go? We knew that they were going to pound it with Kyren Williams because their top two receivers were out, and the Bears have had trouble stopping the run. They were just coming off a game where they gave up a lot of yards to Jonathan Taylor, so I'm sure they were going to test out Kyren Williams. And Kyren Williams had a good game. I think he came out and he did a good job. And honestly, the coaching matchup, I think, went to the Rams early on, right? Didn't it feel like that first quarter, the first couple drives, it's like, oh, here we go again. It's the same game we just watched, right? I'm sure you were having that feeling.
Yes, the best play in the first drive was the punt. And I remember telling someone, I was like, that's not good when your best play in your first drive is a punt. It's nice that we have a dude who killed it. But like, yeah, that feeling early on was like, this is the same crap we've been
Yeah.
watching thus far.
I was trying to see if they do anything different. We still saw a lot of screens. I thought they would go to Roshan early more just because they talked about it, but we saw a lot of Swift in the first couple series. They look like they made a concentrated effort to run to the right side. I don't know if you noticed that, and maybe Sanchez even called it out. I think it's because they were trying to run behind Pryor and Darnell Wright, who they feel is it's like a stronger side for them. And Pryor is just a humongous man, so
Oh,
you know,
large.
yeah, they're kind of hoping like that was help generate some, and they did have a little bit more success early. But that coaching is just so bad in the first half. Like penalty after penalty after penalty, right? I think they had 5 or 6 offensive penalties on the first 3 drives. And how you're constantly putting Caleb in like 3rd and 10, 3rd and 12, and like what is it's hard. It's hard to play quarterback that way for a veteran, let alone a guy who's in his 4th game.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think Mark Sanchez said that also. Like, yeah, all these long ass drives or long ass third downs are not helpful whatsoever.
Yeah. So that was not good on the coaching side. They had another 4th down or not. Was it a 4th down? I think either way, they had an offside penalty that resulted in a 1st down, and you're
Yeah.
just like, come on, 2 weeks in a row, like
Yeah.
like let's clean some of that up. I didn't think the strategy that Eberflus had of blitzing the linebackers early on Stafford was good because Stafford's a veteran quarterback. Like he's seen every defense. If you're blitzing TJ Edwards or Tremaine Edmonds, he's gonna know where the gap is, right? And you'd
Yeah.
always have like this wide open guy in the middle of the field, and he was just thrown to where that blitzer was. And like Sanchez called that out too. It's like why are we not trying to generate pressure with the front 4 first, just to like see how we're doing,
Yeah.
see if those guys can win some of those matchups, and then you're not just getting picked apart by the blitz.
Well, that's what it felt like a lot of the times. Yeah, it's interesting you say that because like they would start wherever they would start, but within 1 to 2 throws, they were at midfield or beyond midfield. It felt like consistently like Torrey Taylor would have a good punt, but they would just like he'd have one long ass throw and get him where like
Yeah,
yeah, he was really dicing him up.
yeah. I mean, and like maybe they'd get into a 3rd and 10, but you never felt comfortable like, oh yeah, we got him here. It'd be like, oh, he's probably gonna throw it for 15 yards to a wide open guy,
Yeah.
and that's kind of what it seemed like in the whole first half. So I don't know. They did make some adjustments once they started generating pressure with the front 4. I think the biggest progresses that they had was finally being able to figure out how to get 1 yard, 2 yards, 3 yards on these 3rd and 2nd and shorts. They converted a lot more of those than they have in the past, and that's because they decided to use Roshan Johnson between the tackles instead of DeAndre Swift. So
Yeah.
at least I think Waldron is making minor adjustments. I'd like to see them come sooner, but I think it did feel night and day from the first half to the second half. And the Bears typically are a better second half team. For some reason, they look like they've never even played together. In the first like couple drives of the game, you're just like, what is this? And then they kind of figure it out by the second half. So I don't know if it's just getting more comfortable. I don't know how many halftime adjustments you can make in a 12-minute halftime, right? So
Yeah.
there's got to be something that's going on with them that they feel more comfortable in the offense and defense, as they move throughout the game.
Yeah, this was like yeah, it really like there were parts in the beginning of that game that it felt legitimately comical. Like to what you said about like it didn't look like they'd played together before. I remember saying to myself, like, didn't you have time to practice with each other? Like,
It's ridiculous. Yeah.
why does it look like this? Which made that second half feel so kind of like a sigh of relief, even though it was close and all that stuff. But just from an offensive like flow perspective, there was something that truly felt like
It's
it clicked.
just, yeah, like, I don't know, it's just puzzling things. Like that one failed 3rd down conversion where they threw a tight end screen to Komet and they're asking Rome to block. And you're like, okay, I mean, I don't know if Rome's a good blocking wide receiver. He's played 4 games in the NFL. Wouldn't it make more sense to flip that? Like have Komet there to block and Rome to catch it and try to run for the 1st down? Maybe they're trying to get too cute. I don't know, but it's like, I don't know. It seems like they're still Shane trying to figure out his personnel. But I did like that Komet is basically the tight end now, right? We
Yeah.
don't really see a ton of Gerald Everett snaps or design of play calls. I think Waldron's probably solidified in that, like, oh yeah, this guy's pretty good. I mean, he had 2 false starts, which was not good,
Yeah.
and that's just part of the sloppiness that we talked about. But overall, Komet, another solid game.
Yes, yes. I like, he did great. Yeah, some of I guess I'm a little confused in like whose fault the false starts are. Like watching it, is it the coaching's fault? Is Komet set? Does he need to know the cadence? Does Caleb need to explain that cadence? I'm I'm trying to understand that part of like, because sometimes like, yeah, I don't, yeah, those are a little confusing on who is the one that is to blame in something like that. Because Cole Komet seems like a player who's like kind of knows what he's doing. He's not making mistakes
Yeah, no,
all the
that's
time.
a great question. That's a great question. Is like who's fault? I mean, because on like miscommunicated throws, you're like, was that on the receiver for running the wrong route, or was that on the quarterback for just being inaccurate or not knowing where the receiver's going to be? So it's a fair question to, say whose fault is that false start. But generally, I think it is usually on the player that false starts because the other 10 guys are not false starting, right? So there's, you're on an island there, bro. Like,
Yeah,
you moved and nobody else did. So chances are it's your fault and not everybody else's, right? So
yeah,
I think he was just getting a little antsy, trying to get ahead of it. Um, and maybe Caleb had a hitch, but like nobody else moved, right? So I don't know.
yeah.
Um, so I think obviously there's some things to clean up, but we saw some progress, and especially even from Caleb, I thought he played pretty well. Totally different game than what he played last week, right?
Like
Where
half
he's just
more,
airing it out.
more than half less throws.
Yeah. Yeah. Not as many throws, totally airing it out everywhere. I thought he played in the structure. I thought he played on time. He made good decisions. Um, I don't think there were any turnover worthy plays. I mean, he did have a fumble. I think he had a strip sack fumble, right? That they ended up recovering.
Yeah.
The Bears ended up recovering. So that was probably his big play. He did avoid some sacks. Now he did get sacked a couple times, but um, you know, I think overall he played really well. He took those checkdowns to Swift, which was great. And we talked about Swift, right? This is his best game, obviously, as a Bear. And
Yeah.
we talked about how his strength is not getting the 1 to 2 yards between the defensive tackles and, pushing a linebacker back. That's not his game, right? Getting him out in space, getting him to that second level where he can make safeties and cornerbacks whiff on these one-arm tackles. That's what he was doing. He was like
Yeah.
a great safety valve. He put a little shimmy on one guy or the other. And then even when he was in the running game, the line did a good job of picking up the linemen and the backers so that he could, you know, blow his way past a cornerback or a safety or put a move on him. And I thought it was a good job of what Waldron did. For as much flack as we give him on this podcast, he did a good job of utilizing Swift and putting him in positions to succeed.
Yeah, he was really featured. There was like a multiple drives or multiple, yeah, stretches of drives where he was like seemed like kind of the featured like focus. It's like when you're
Yeah.
playing like Madden, you're like, I'm just gonna keep using this one dude because he's getting me all of my yards everywhere. And that's kind of what he like, yeah, that's kind of what he did.
And that's actually interesting that you brought that up. Like, keeping keeping the flow of what's working, right? And that's what Caleb just said. Like, hey, if the run's working, let's keep running. Hey, if these quick passes are working, let's keep doing the quick passes. Let's go no huddle. Let's, keep the flow going. And I think that's one of the things that Waldron probably discussed with the players is like, let's not be so rigid in what we're doing. Let's stay adaptable. Let's keep going with what we think is getting us down the field. And I think you saw some of that. The Bears went no huddle a couple times, especially at the end of the first half, and they had a lot of success. And I think it was good because the Rams were able to generate pressure when they were able to kind of see the coverage, manipulate their personnel. Their 2 rookies, Verse and Brisk, were creating some havoc, right? And the O line did hold up a little bit, but they were struggling at times. So I think doing that no huddle, staying in the flow, really helped the offense.
Yeah, yeah. Did you notice when Tevin Jenkins got hurt? Did you notice? Because as I was watching, and now as I think about it, like it's like it did feel kind of different. I don't really know when the different happened. I don't fully remember when he got hurt, but did you notice like something
Yeah,
changed?
yeah, I did, and that Tevin's been a warrior, but they honestly played better when he wasn't in. He's struggled this year, no doubt. And then when he left, they had to move Pryor over to the other guard spot. And then because then they brought Nate Davis in, and who immediately got a holding penalty. But but I thought they did play pretty well. And I thought it was interesting, that observation. And I don't know how long Tevin Jenkins is going to be out for or what they're going to try to do. I honestly don't think that they know their final offensive line yet because Ryan Bates got hurt. And I think they wanted him to be a starter. They wanted him to be the starting center, actually. And then he got hurt. And then they had to put Shelton into the center role. And so I don't think they really wanted to go with that. So I don't know if we'll know the final offensive line configuration until after the Jaguars game, which is when Bates is supposed to come back from his short-term IR stint. And then we'll kind of be able to figure it out. But it was interesting. And then I don't know if you also noticed, but they used Doug Kramer, an offensive lineman, in the fullback spot
Yeah.
on some of those, on that goal line touchdown to Roshan. And they used him maybe another time after that too. And that's interesting to note too, because Kari Blasingame is normally their fullback and would play that role. And he was hurt early, but I think he was a healthy scratch for this game. So that means they planned on using Kramer that way, despite having their fullback healthy.
Yeah. I mean, what is not even to minimize role of a fullback, but it seems like they have a big giant body and follow the big giant body to the promised land. Why not do that more? I mean, I don't know what the size difference is between Kramer and Blasingame, but that dude was like a giant man.
Yeah, Kramer's a lot bigger. I think
Yeah.
the main difference is you have to be a little bit more nimble
Mm.
as the fullback because you have to fill the hole before the running back gets there. Because the idea is you got big on big with the offensive lineman and the defensive lineman. And then when that hole emerges, there's going to be a linebacker there or a cornerback or somebody like that. And so you got to take that guy out so that the running back, doesn't have a hat on him. And so with an offensive lineman, he's got to fit through the hole, right? He's got to be able to maneuver through that.
Sure.
And he's got to be quick enough to be able to block a linebacker or a cornerback in open space instead of just like the guy put a little juke on him and he just falls down. And
Yeah.
that's where the fullback can do that better than an offensive lineman can. But if you're at the goal line, dude, just move a body,
Just
like
push
you're a
them
big
back
dude,
and-
just push him back. You only need to fall forward. So I thought it was some good creativity shown by Waldron. He had a handful of creative plays in there. Some of them got called back due to like illegal procedures and like Darnell Wright lining up incorrectly. Things like that need to get cleaned up, obviously. But I don't know. It felt better in the second half. We actually had back-to-back touchdown drives, which was like, what team are we watching? What is this?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that was encouraging.
Just like I think you did. I think all of this we've been kind of talking about over the course of all these episodes, and today is like going with the flow versus like it almost started to feel like this is our plan for the game. This is what we're gonna do, and then we're not gonna adjust really, and then it looks herky jerky and doesn't fit. And you watch like the Rams, and there was just moments where they were flowing on offense because of Stafford and cutting them up, and then you get to see that in the second half of like this flow and adjustment, and just as Caleb said, riding with what's working because. It's like watching it, I don't understand why any teams do screens because it seems like screens are a stupid play. Now I'm sure they're good plays, but just kind of watching us do screens, it's
I
like,
mean, some teams run them really well. Kansas
yeah,
City runs them really well.
yeah. But yeah, just
Miami
that,
runs them really well.
yeah. Just that it's nice to see the flow, nice to see a cohesiveness, nice to see it look like it's just a lot more seamless. There's like yeah, I guess, well, I mean, we keep saying flow, but it's just like, yeah, it just looks better and it looks like
I
it's
liked the
working.
Caleb Williams read options. We saw that a couple times in the game. I thought he ran those really well. I thought he made the correct decision every time as well. So
Yeah.
that could be a good little, play to keep at sprinkling in
Yeah,
that
I
we
mean,
hadn't seen before.
it seems to be a thread throughout the season so far. It's like Caleb's reads overall seem really good. I mean, there's the long throws still seem to be not there
Yeah.
yet. A
Yeah.
little missing players and like I think there were two. There was like one to DJ and one to
Rome.
Rome. Yeah.
You're right. He's missing those long throws. And I think, I don't know, the DJ thing is interesting. He He seemed like I don't know, he just always looks like he's brooding,
Yeah.
DJ. Um, and it seemed like on that missed touchdown, you'll never know what the play was supposed to be, but it looks like he kind of went half speed and then was like, oh shit, and then tried to
Yeah.
like sprint to catch up to it, and it didn't work at that time. But I don't know. It seemed like him and Caleb then obviously got on the same page and had a touchdown. So hopefully that kind of launches that.
Yeah. It was so beautiful. Just the window was so tight. It was awesome. It's cool watching that stuff, man.
That was a great throw. And then the one to Komet over the middle was a great
Oh,
throw as
yeah.
well.
I mean, might have been killing that over the course of this season so far. Just like it's like a straight shot right up the middle.
Yeah. Yeah. So
Cool.
yeah, promising, good to
Yeah.
build on. We talked about, and I'm going to keep saying this because I think it's kind of accurate, is it's going to take 4 or 5 games, right, for this offense to figure it out. So now we're after game 4. They look the best that they have in the second half of that 4th game. So that's positive. Let's see how they do in the 5th game. And then, the next 2 games, there's no excuse for this offense to not continue to do well because they're playing a Carolina team that is not very good on defense. And then I think after that, they've got Jacksonville, who's also not very good on defense. So this is the time. We need to see some actual sustainability from that offense.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Any specific things to look out for the Andy Dalton revenge game?
Yes, Andy Dalton, the Red Rifle, returns to Soldier Field as this revenge game. I actually felt better about this game when I thought Bryce Young was going to play because Andy Dalton is a little bit more of a professional. But the Bears, honestly, they should take care of business. They're a better team. They need to put it away. I think the line's 5.5 or 4.5 for the Bears, in favor of the Bears. One thing I would look out for is a faster start. We talked about how this team kind of comes out and look like they don't even know who they are, right? They've never played together before.
Yeah.
They've only had 3 first quarter points so far. So look out for let's see if they can build some offensive momentum and see if they can score on their first drive, right? Or get a touchdown on their in the first quarter. I'd look out for that run pass balance. See if they go more no huddle, see if they go more up tempo. Talk what Caleb was talking about in terms of working within the flow. If these quick passes are working or if these Roshan Johnson runs are working, let's see if they stick with the flow. And then the last thing I'd look out for is the offensive line. See if Jenkins is going to play. If he's not going to play, what does that lineup look like? Is Pryor going to stay at left guard? And then see if Kramer is going to play fullback or if Blossingame is going to be another healthy scratch or if he's going to play. I try to look for the offensive line, see what that configuration looks like, and what kind of success they have with it.
Hell yeah. Well, great. Any other thoughts, things, feelings? Anything we got to add? Anything?
No, obviously a win kind of makes you feel better about the team. There's obviously lots to improve. I still think the coaching staff feels like they're in over their heads, but at least the players seem like they get it and want to succeed and are telling the coaches hey, actually coach us, please coach us harder. We have the talent. We just got to put it together. So let's see. Good momentum second half of this game, and hopefully it carries over to the Panthers.
Hell yeah. For Samir Patel, I'm Chirag Rathod. We are the Bears in the neighborhood, and we will catch you all next week.